everybody. So welcome to Stories from the Other Side. So today I'm going to talk about a client I had and a couple of lives that showed up and were kind of dictating what was going on with him, his life. So when he came to see me, he was having some anxiety attacks. And while I was working on him, I could see two lives that he had lived already that showed up. So I want to talk about time. So time is a circle. I know this is going to be hard to swallow, but time is a circle. Everything is happening at once. So those lives were happening now. And something came up for him, and so somehow he was connecting with those lives. Or that trauma that still sits in your field was coming to the surface to be cleared. So I'll tell you about one life. So one life, he was, I want to say it was Dark Ages, and he was a Frenchman, and he was kind of fighting the government, fighting, those who were trying to control everyone. He was fighting for freedom. He was young. He was a writer, and so he was persecuted for his writings and tortured. When I saw him, he was in a torture chamber and he had been tortured, but when I saw him, he was on his way to the guillotine to get his head chopped off. And so when he got to the guillotine, I don't know if he moved or they set it up wrong or something went awry, and it didn't completely sever his head initially. And of course, that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, those moments, right? That's sitting in your field, right? He did die, though. He did die eventually. So then I'll tell you what we did with both of those lives, but I want to tell you about the other life that showed up. So that was one. The other life that showed up was he drove a wagon for hire. He had his own wagon. It was like the Wild West days. It was the 1800s. And they wanted him to transport like a whole bunch of gold from one bank to another. And this looks like it was in, I don't know, Nevada, Arizona, somewhere out like that. It was out in the desert. And so they hired him to go get this gold. And, of course, he had a family, right? And he had a wife and definitely one child that I can remember. But so when he picked up this gold, he was supposed to have military protection, and there was only one guy they had protecting him. So he was kind of nervous. He thought, oh, this isn't going to go so well because there were a lot of bandits out there. So they get the gold in the wagon, and he's, driving the wagon. And of course, these bandits came. They shot everyone. They shot him. He died. And, that was the end of that. So that aspect of him, the wagon, the man who owned the wagon, so that aspect, that life, he did not cross over. The Frenchman did cross over. So what I did first was I took him back to the life as a Frenchman. So you can't change what happened. If you had a time machine and you could go back in time and you could change, what happened and take trauma out, you would come back to this time and you would regret it because you wouldn't be who you are now, right? All of these experiences are wisdom, right? Just think of them as just experiences, right? Suffering is only temporary. So so basically I had him go back to this Frenchman before he got to the guillotine, and I had him talk to himself. So him on the table, the gentleman I had on the table, I had him basically go back to that time to see himself, because remember, all time is happening at once, so it's like a circle. So he just goes to the other side of the circle. And I had him just change the perspective. So he had a little discussion with himself. Basically told him that he was there for him. He had his hand on his shoulder. He loved him. He understood his pain. And, suffering is only temporary, and he's going to have some great lives. So that's that. You basically, when you change the perspective of a timeline, it heals all the timelines up to this point. What I believe that trauma does is it just becomes like a stagnated mass in their field, and it just needs to to be transmuted, because you can't really truly let things go, because once energy is created, it can never be destroyed. And then the other life, I had him go back. First, I had him first talk to this aspect of himself, so it would be, we'd have an easier time getting him to cross over. Same thing, telling him he's got his hand on his shoulder, his wife and daughter are fine, everything's going to be okay. And then we gave, of course, this wagon train dude, the same guy on the table, but that aspect of him, the option to cross, you know, telling him his wife and his child were waiting for him in that light. And he went, and it was really beautiful. This gentleman had a much easier time with his anxiety after that. So that just shows that, you know, all of the experiences we've ever had, we've signed up for, but sometimes when they come to the surface, they just need to be transmuted. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and join me next time for Stories from the Other Side.